I also posted one data file on your class. So ULMS, I think, Ulsan, AC.kl. This is, I think, your ULMS. I posted one data file. Okay, so please download it. In this class, I will use that class. So please connect to the internet, download one file.
We do it now?
Yeah, now. If you need some power supply, we may change one of the laptop. Okay, so because I will do most of things on the practice of how to use data today, I may have no reason to record today's class. So basically, when I tried to run Stata, I went to UCLA homepage. I do not remember econ or stat department, I don't remember. But they have some kind of data teaching program. So it explains about how to use data. So I think I Googled UCLA data, and then you will find some kind of homepage. It was pretty good when I run it. But anyway, there are a lot of internet resources on how to use data, okay, in practice. So what I try to focus on is how to interpret the data. But anyway, so did you guys were able to download the file?
Yeah. That is an Excel file.
Yeah, there's one Excel file, and then next thing, import that data to your data. If you can do it, do it. I ask you guys to practice a little bit. If you can do it, do it. If you cannot do it, let me know. I will help you. So import this data to data. Next thing is run OLS. Okay? I think there are two things. One is corruption index. The other is parking ticket. There are this kind of two variables. Run OLS, corruption index. This one is dependent variable y, parking ticket. This one is control variable x. Okay? Then run OLS and show me the data. If you have any questions, just let me know. Let's do step by step. Do you guys have data in your computer? I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
Did you guys import this data set from the U class? Okay. Then can I see it?
This is my last work.
Okay. Yeah, so that's your last work. But what I asked is not that.
Yes.
Import parking data set to this data.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I want.
It's running an automatic update.
Okay, I will wait. Okay, and did you import the data set? Not yet, I guess. Yeah.
This one.
Yeah. So parking.
This one.
Yeah. So try to import this data set to data. Okay. And when you have some problem, don't worry, let me know. Okay? the purpose of this class is to make you guys to use data. Okay, I ask you to do some kind of practice on data. What I want, download the data set and import that data set to the data. Okay.
Yes, I have a question. I have learned data, but I doesn't know like this input data.
Yeah, that's totally fine. If you want,
so I know how to run
Yeah.
like run the data like.
yeah. Actually, in case of
like
data 15, you can import the Excel file directly. In this
like
case, you need
yeah, I can do,
Yeah.
but you give us the
New data set,
Excel.
yeah.
So I don't know how to.
okay, you will have no idea how to
Yeah.
import that kind of thing. Yeah. I'm just checking how much you studied, but anyway, you did something. That's alright. So
Is that finished?
I don't think so. Yeah. It says no data in. Now you have it. So when you check this
Where
one,
can I?
this one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this one.
Then it shows some kind of data set. This one, next one, those kind of things.
Okay, the data
Okay.
already there.
Create that thing to living.
导入
你会啦？
啊，
那怎么弄呢？
对，C
塔
塔，C 塔，C 塔，
就是找哪个？
回进 C 塔，
进
那
C
个
塔是吧
那个软件对。
我是用的直接在 data 里弄，我不会弄它
啊，它导入的，
Excel
对对对
里就，
它就导入就好了。
人家重新运行一个 data 好，
对，
然后
file，
file
然后 log，
log，
import
Excel
Excel spreadsheet，然后 close。
Okay, I think today recording does not make sense at all.
就可以把它输进去了。
Anyway, yeah. So I think today, yeah.
果然是个老师的文件夹。
对
对，
然后就这个打开就 OK 啦，
还没，OK，
这个 OK 了就行了，就导进了，然后从这里就能看了。
Still automatic update?
Oh,
okay.
yes.
Already
Okay.
imported.
So give him some chance, and if he doesn't know how to do that, teach him. Okay, then what is next? You guys have data set in there, then run a regression. Corruption index, I think you have that variable there. That is dependent variable. Number of parking tickets, that will be your independent variable. So let me explain. So I will explain, and then you guys do some kind of basic things, and then I will teach how to interpret the result, okay? So this one is about the relationship between corruption and economic development. This kind of thing. Okay? So when your country is corrupt, or when your country is not transparent enough, we think you guys have bad institutions and it may discourage some kind of development. Okay? So some kind of corruption, it is generally known to be bad for economic development. Okay? That's what people think. But sometimes this kind of corruption, sometimes it is required for some countries. So if you do not bribe to the government officers, you may not be able to do it at all. Then when you bribe them, when you give them some money, then all the procedure, it will be very quickly done. In some sense, you can do some kind of efficiency. So in corruption, there are two theories. One is send the will. The other is grease the wheel. Okay? So stand the wheel means you can think about the wheel. Okay? This kind of thing. Okay? So you can think about this kind of wheel. This one, you should roll it. Okay? Then if you give some sand, okay, then if you put some sand here, the wheel will stop rolling, okay? So sand the wheel means that corruption is bad for the economic development. Because of this kind of corruption, you are sanding the wheel. The other way is grease the wheel. So in some countries, especially less developing countries, the corruption is kind of part of the development. When you want to do something, then you need to give some money to the government officials, then everything can be very smooth. Okay? So under that circumstance, we call it grease the wheel kind of theory. Okay? So by using some kind of corruption properly in some efficient way, you can grease the wheel. Meaning that this wheel is too old, you need to grease it. Give some kind of oil to this kind of thing. Corruption works as some kind of oil for running the wheel smoothly. So there are two types of kind of theory about corruption. Okay? One is sand the wheel, the other is grease the wheel. And then people, they debated about this. So generally, corruption is bad, of course. Okay? When you have less corruption, you are more likely to get better institutions. But in many real-life classes, especially for the businessmen, they think corruption is the part of the government. So if you simply forget about the corruption and try to do some business, your business fails. So sometimes if you need to give some money to the government officers, then give them some money and do your business. And then when you do more business, there will be economic development kind of things. So there are some kind of debate about this kind of things. In good country or developed country, less corruption is much better. But in the developing country, corruption is part of the government. Especially the problem is that some countries like the United States or Canada or European countries, they think corruption is bad, so you cannot give money to the government officials. Okay? But when these guys are doing the business in Africa or Middle East, without corruption, you cannot do anything. Okay? So when the American firm is doing the business in Africa, then these African government officials, they demand some money. But if you give them some money, then American government will penalize. They give some kind of penalty for the corruption in United States. Okay? Or if you do not give the money to the African government officials, then you cannot do anything. Your business will stop. Okay? So the American businessmen or Canadian businessmen, they really complained about it. Okay, in our country, we know that corruption is bad, so we are not giving any money to American government officials. Okay? But when we do business in Africa, if we don't give any money to the government officers, then our business simply stops. Okay? If I give them some money, then American government will give some kind of penalty for us. So under this situation, we cannot do any business.
So can you give us a real sample about this situation?
What is it?
Some real sample.
Real sample, basically American government company, let's say some kind of oil company. Let's say BP. British Petroleum, this is oil company. Okay? This is globalized. They have a lot of some kind of, how can I say? A lot of some oil reserve across the world. Okay? Then this kind of oil, it has some kind of very strict restrictions on environmental protections. Okay? If you spill over some kind of crude oil to the sea, then there will be a huge environmental problem. So it has a lot of stricter restrictions on environmental protection problems. Okay? In Canada, European Union, United States, they have this kind of environmental restrictions when you follow the directions and when you meet all the criteria of this kind of environmental protection, you can run the business in these countries. The problem is there are a lot of countries in Africa and Middle East, they also have some oil reserves. Okay? So when you want to produce some crude oil in these countries, they also have some kind of environmental restrictions on how to produce oil in their country. The problem is that because of the corruption, the government officers in Africa and Middle East, they know that the British petroleum is very rich. They have a lot of money. And they are controlling this kind of restrictions on environmental kind of things. In United States, when the government gets some money from this company, the government officers, they will go to the jail. Okay? So in America, when you meet the criteria, then they will give you some kind of permission. But in Africa, the corruption is part of this kind of countries. Okay? So when they do some kind of thing in Africa, this company, they meet all the environmental criteria. But government officers, what they think is not about environmental protection. How much money can I get from British petroleum? So even if they meet all these kind of criteria, government officers, they will not give you the permission. Okay? Then crude oil requires a lot of investment. You already did a lot of investment in Africa and in the Middle East, but government officials, what they demand is their bribe, their money. Okay? So when you do not give that money, government officials simply say that no, you did not meet any criteria of our country, or they can stop your business. Okay?
It's a kind of policy of economic expansion.
Economic what?
Expansion.
Economic?
The punishment of the economics.
Yeah, punishment kind of thing.
It's kind of
Yeah.
policy from the government.
So it's not really the policy of the government, but basically in Africa or in many developing countries, the bribe or the getting money from the companies, that is the main purpose of being a government official. Okay? So this kind of thing, the problem is that, so the businessman from BP from England, they know that when they give some money to these countries, okay, then this is not a problem. Or even if you give more money, then they will simply ignore this part. That is more economically efficient. Okay? Even if you did not meet any kind of environmental criteria, government officers, when they get enough money from the company, they say, okay, forget about the environment, do the business, and give me some more money. Then investing more money to the environmental protection, instead of investing more money for environmental protection, giving some money to the government officers can be much cheaper. Okay? So they have that kind of problem. When they give no money in doing the business in United States, not a problem. Never give the money to the government officers, and when you meet the criteria, it will be relatively okay. Okay? Some government officers in United States, Canada, and European Union, they are also corrupt. So they may demand some money. Okay? But anyway, when they do some business in Africa, they need to give the money to these government officers. But in that case, the corruption law in America will penalize them. Okay? If you do not give the money, your entire investment will disappear. Okay? So when they apply their home country's kind of restriction, you will go to the jail because you gave money to the African government officers. If you do not give the money, then you cannot do any business. So they are giving the money secretly. But when they are caught by the American government, they will be penalized. Then businessmen, they say that it's about the grease the wheel. Hey, we cannot do any business in Africa without this kind of corruption. So in my country, it's the same the wheel. And real problem is that when you have this kind of problem, some other countries like China, they also want the oil reserve in Africa and Middle East, but Chinese are relatively okay for the doing corruption kind of thing in international business. Then Africans, they prefer Chinese businessmen in developing oil country. Then they are losing that kind of competition against China because of their corruption law. So grease the wheel theory have that kind of background. Okay? In general, corruption is bad, of course. But international case, or when you really do some business, it's different story. Okay? So economists, they want to check what's going on with the corruption. Is it really good for the economy, or is it really bad for the economic development kind of thing? And it's very difficult to tell. Okay? And then there's one paper about this kind of corruption and development. So next thing is how to measure corruption. Okay? So this kind of measure means that Americans, they say China is corrupted country. Okay? They blame the China. China says no. Our institution is good enough. Okay? We are trying to control our corruption. You say our country is corrupted, but you have more problem in United States. So how to measure which country is corrupt or not? It's very difficult. Okay? When you blame the other country, you say, oh, your country is very corrupt. Then that country, they will never accept that. No. We have our own system. Our own system is clear enough. You do not understand some kind of background or those kind of things of our system kind of things. Okay? So it's very difficult to measure which country is corrupt and which country is not. Okay? Then this kind of corruption, this kind of measure is also related to the economic development. In general, if you are rich, if your country is rich enough, people tend to say not corrupt. If your country is poor, then people say, oh, your country is corrupt. That kind of thing. Then this kind of criteria or the measure of the corruption is made by United States, Canada, and European Union. Okay? These countries, they are making this kind of index on corruption. Okay? And at the same time, they think poor countries are corrupt. When they evaluate themselves, they think, oh, we have a pretty good system. So there is some kind of problem in terms of measuring the degree or index of corruption. Okay? So the data set that I give you, they are trying to solve that kind of problem. Okay? So what they say is they checked diplomats. Okay? They are government officials working on international relations, okay? Diplomats, and United Nations is located in New York City. Okay? Diplomats, they live in New York City for when they work for United Nations. Okay? And New York City, there's a lot of parking problems. Okay? Parking in the New York City is very difficult and expensive. Okay? Finding a parking spot in New York City is very difficult and It's expensive. Okay? Another thing is the diplomat, they will not get the penalty. Violation fee. Diplomats, they represent the country. Okay? And there are some kind of agreement between two countries when the diplomat, when they make a crime, they are not penalized by the country of United States. Okay? So diplomats, they live in the New York City, but because of diplomatic immunity, when the Chinese diplomats in New York City, when they make a crime, they are not penalized by the American law. They will be penalized by the Chinese law. Okay? Diplomats, they have diplomatic immunity on making crimes. That one also applies for this kind of parking problem. Okay? Diplomats, when they park at the New York City illegally, and then the police officer will give parking ticket to the diplomat. However, they don't have to pay for it. Okay? I have diplomatic immunity. New York City, it is very difficult to find the parking spaces. Diplomats, they don't have to pay the parking fee. The parking violation fee, because they are diplomat. They have diplomatic immunity. The idea is that people from corrupt country, they are diplomats. Okay? They don't have to pay the parking ticket in New York City. If you are from corrupt country, then why don't you just park anywhere you want? Get the ticket, forget about it. But if you are from the not corrupt country, then even if you do not have to pay your parking violation fee, you still keep the law. Okay? So that was the idea in this kind of measure of the degree of corruption. Diplomats, they have diplomatic immunity for not paying parking tickets, but some diplomats from not corrupt country, they don't have to pay the money, but they still keep the law of the New York City. Okay? So they try to compare the correlation between corruption index and the number of parking tickets. The data that I gave you is about the country's corruption index and the country's parking tickets. Okay? So when you run some kind of OLS regression, you will find if it is really true or not. Okay? So there are two other ways. In this case, I asked you to corruption index is this kind of number of dependent variable, and this is independent variable, but we can think the other way. Okay? So that one will be called as instrumental variables. Okay? So in this kind of setting, we think this one is more reliable. Okay? Same condition in the New York City. Okay? And then, if the diplomats, they are doing a lot of parking violations, means that your country is corrupt. But some people from the other countries, even if they do not have to pay any money for parking violations, they still keep their parking rules in New York City. So this one is trying to find out the relationship between number of parking tickets and corruption index. But I ask you, run a regression on this relationship. Okay? Then by doing this kind of data analysis, you will see what is the relationship between two of them. Okay? So this time, please run the regression. And I think, yeah, this one is meaningless. There are too many waiting time in this kind of thing. And after explaining this kind of things, yeah. So let me stop recording today's